Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Hey guys, we're your hosts, M and J, and today we wanted to talk about High Guardian Spice again. Recently, Ray Rodriguez put out a Twitter thread talking about what happened with High Guardian Spice. Ray Rodriguez is the creator and showrunner of High Guardian Spice. We all know the show didn't go over well, and Rodriguez went on Twitter to do damage control, even though the show premiered a few months ago. The thread starts off by saying the show had a very low budget. Specifically, it says, High Guardian Spice had a very small budget. We were the first show of a non-union studio. If you're mad at the animation quality, it was the budget. Background art, budget. Writing, budget. We literally started storyboarding the first episode before the first script was finished. Them not finishing the script first would definitely explain a lot. There's no actual hook to get you interested in watching the show. It's basically filler. To be honest, the show doesn't really get interesting until the olive reveal, which is about halfway through. I'm sure budget did play a part in it, but at the same time I just don't think that's a good enough excuse for everything that's wrong with the show. I also question if this was more about time constraints than the actual budget. Usually if a production starts filming or working on the art process before the script is finished, is because of time constraints. For example, Pirates of the Caribbean 3, Spider-Man 3, and RWBY Volume 5 all admitted to not having completed script once they started filming, and all three examples were not well received for good reason. Rodriguez does mention time constraints later in the thread, but at the same time High Guardian Spice was supposed to premiere in 2019, only for it to get delayed 2 years. Shouldn't that have given them the time to fix these mistakes? Or at least some of them. This animation is very sloppy. It is normal for cartoons to have animation errors, but it's just way too much in this show, and the low budget might explain things, but I still think it's fair to criticize these problems. Like there are scenes where the furniture is constantly changing position or even disappearing between frames, and the show is full of other mistakes, whether they're layering errors, sizing errors, perspective being off, coloring errors, way too much negative space, along with the ridiculous amount of PNGs they used. It's probably most egregious in the breakfast scene, but it's all over the show really. And speaking of that breakfast scene, I know they wanted to make the table look like it was full of food, but it honestly would look better if that stuff just wasn't there. Having Sage's cousin holding the stacks of pancakes would have probably been enough. At least they tried to blend some of the PNGs, not very well admittedly, but they tried. But come on. And honestly, as showrunner, it's Rodriguez's responsibility to make sure things are going right. According to his own website, he was directly involved in every aspect of the show, and as a leader, it is your responsibility to make sure a quality product is delivered. The budget and schedule might explain some things, but that doesn't change the fact that he was the leader on the project. The website says he was at the helm of every department, including the writer's room, not to mention he created the show to begin with, so shouldn't he have known the writing better than anyone? I'm not saying that everything was Ray Rodriguez's fault, but at the end of the day, it was still his show that he had a lot of creative control over, and I'm not entirely convinced it was just a budget thing. Later in the thread, he says this: in another timeline, maybe High Guardian Spice wouldn't have been roped into the culture wars from its first trailer and marked as bad years before it came out. But that first trailer was terrible. It barely showed anything from High Guardian Spice, and mostly talked about Crunchyroll's new studio, which they shouldn't have had in the first place. Crunchyroll promised that the money they made would go to the anime industry, but instead they took it and used it to make their own studio and their own cartoons. So any show they made would have been met with criticism, especially the first one announced. And that one just happened to be High Guardian Spice, which probably wasn't anywhere near ready for announcements, since they didn't seem to have anything to show off anyway, aside from some concept art. But they bragged about how great the studio was and how no one else could make a show like this. Except the premise of High Guardian Spice sounded a lot like other shows, where a group of girls go to a magical school to learn how to become guardians or witches or huntresses or whatever this universe happens to be going with. In other words, it sounds like something several other studios have actually done before, and done well, so that was a pretty bold claim that a lot of people were skeptical they could pull off, since they didn't actually show anything, and how similar it sounded to other shows. So really, Crunchyroll walked into that one, and it's reasonable for anime fans to be upset their money wasn't going where they were told it was, and it's really scummy to do that, and I don't think it's fair to write off that criticism. In the end, I think High Guardian Spice would be a good learning experience, both for Crunchyroll and the crew, and others can learn what not to do when producing a show. Things definitely could have been worse, just look at X-Arm. Not that that's high praise, but still. Anyway, those are our thoughts on the matter. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below, we'd love to hear from you. Before we go, we want to give a shout out to our members: Stutania, Tyrant Carnivore, Adam K, Shiny Tiny Orc Boy, The Rabbit Mancer, Hunter Rose, General Bolivar, Depth Charge Media, Samaru163, Gabby Hime, Sandy Martin, Verdant Range, Butcher7 Actual, Dash Hound, JVR, Hussyman42, Nixel, Eric Griffin, Phantom of the Night, Phil C, Taylor Ramirez, Caleb Nelson, Shrike Z, and Bandito Bane. Thanks so much for your support. If you'd like to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. If you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like and hit the subscribe button. That helps us out a lot too, and it's free. We also have a Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video. Bye everybody. Bye guys.